Sreshthang manumapi Shachiputram matra swarupam Rupam tasyagrajam Purupurim maturim Goshtavatim Radha kundam girivaram Radhika madhavasam Prapto yasya prasita kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi Nindantam Pulakokarena Vikasatanipa Prasuna Chavin Prodvi Kritya Bujadvayam Hari Hari Tyuchaya Vadantam Ho Netantam Galadassu Nirjarachayai Sinchantamurvitalam Gayantam Nijapashadai Parivritam Tam Gaurachandram Stuma Ali Paripalita Pravalita Sanandamalokitaha Pratyasam sumana falodaya vidho samodam mamodita vrindaranya bhuvi prakasha madhura sarvatisai sriya Radha Madhavayo Pramodayatu Mam Ullalasa Kalpadruma Jairupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhattadas Raghunath Echai Gosai Kuri Charana Bandha Jaite Vigna Nashabishta Puram Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Shri Radhe. I bow down also to the lotus feet of Srila Satchidananda Das Babaji, and just and that's exactly what I need to talk about. It's been, I believe that the purpose for which I've been doing these talks has come to, has been realized, but that I do have to change my modus operandi a little bit here. And as much as I enjoy doing this, and as much as I benefit from it myself, and as much as I think the work benefits from it, so I don't really want to stop doing this, but I have to be more productive. This is the whole problem, you see. It's, I've been treating this like some kind of a retirement project that I have an infinite amount of time in which I can do it. But of course the world does not work that way. Time and tide wait for no man. So we have to move, push on, get a little bit more work done. I've been doing this for 3 months now, and I've only got up to Anuched 8. This is too slow. So I have to, unfortunately, I'm sure that I will do something. The more that I think about it, the more that I still think that I have something to say, but maybe the format will change a little bit, but I have to concentrate on getting this work done. So let's, at least today, you see what's happened. I went through the translation, and now it's gotten to the point, but because I'm doing these videos, then I have to say something. I have to find something particularly appropriate to say, and that kind of obligation leads me to be well. I was dissatisfied with the lecture that came out, lecture. Let's say basically I just read the text and the translation, and that was it. So what's the problem here? So Anuched 8, external Bhagavad Sakshatkara is superior to internal. So the whole section 7, the whole Anuched 7 was about Sakshatkara. Sakshat, a direct vision. All right, and there's internal and external, two kinds. Internal means to see him inside in your mind or in your heart, or in your mind, like in your imagination, to see him. And then superior, then what this Anuched is going to say, but superior to that is the external realization. So to see Krishna externally with the senses that have been imbued with the eternal potency and have thus become capable of seeing him. Those senses which he has awarded in order to reveal his form. That particular transmission, that particular blessing has been given, has been received by that devotee. He has seen God, and he has seen God how? He has seen God as his Ishta Devata. He has seen God in the form in which he worships him. That God that he worships has shown himself, has been pleased, and by being pleased has shown himself to that devotee. Now, of course, that's something that is, let's say, a very high level of requirement. And in a sense, what does it do? It eliminates all teachers as charlatans. Practically speaking, who has the audacity to say, well, I have seen Krishna. In another lecture I was talking about, in the previous class I was talking about seeing Krishna as an incremental thing. That the first realization, the first time that one was affected by the chanting of the holy name, for instance, that was a seeing, that was Krishna, seeing Krishna in the way that Krishna showed himself to Narada, and then told him, "You won't see me again in this lifetime." So Narada had seen Krishna. And later, as we'll see, let's see what we have in this section, because we're going to talk more about it now. So in idrishepi bhagavata sakshatkare bahika sakshatkarasya utkarsham aha. So idrishe bhagavata sakshatkare. So the conclusion of the 7th Anuched was that Bhagavat Sakshatkara is superior to Brahma Sakshatkara. So now he says, now of those, that the Bahik Sakshatkara is superior to the Anta Sakshatkara. So although Bhagavan realization is such, having both an internal and an external aspect, yet Markandeya spoke of the superiority of the external realization to Narayana sages. Grihitva jadayo yasya Srimat padabja darshanam manasa yoga pakvena Sabhavan Mekshigo Charaha Grihitva Jadayo Yasya Srimad Padabja Darshanam Manasa yoga pakvena sabhavan mekshigo charaha. Bhagavan, obtaining the vision of whose lotus feet in their mind, matured through the practice of yoga, conditioned beings can attain the post of Brahma, has become the object of my vision. Bhagavan, obtaining the vision of whose lotus feet in their mind, matured through the practice of yoga, conditioned beings can attain the post of Brahma, has become the object of my eyes. So obviously the verse is saying that Brahma, through meditation, had a vision of Narayana. And that was how he got the power to create the universe. So here Markandeya is saying to Narayana Rishi that that vision, that internal vision that they got, which made them, which empowered them, which gave them their status, their glory, and that person is now right here present before my eyes. So here he's showing the superiority of that external vision. Okay, so now this is important because we believe that God is accessible to the senses, even though those senses need to be transformed in order to make them capable of seeing the divine reality. The divine reality is not perfectly obvious to everyone. One's eyes need to be tinged with the salve of love, premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santak sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti. And when those eyes, then one sees with the inner eye. And then one sees wherever one goes. Hridayeshu vilokayanti. Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santak sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti. Hridayeshu means not only in their own heart, but in other people's hearts also. So that's what the saints do. They see God's presence in everyone's heart and sees Him there with the eye of love. Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena Santa sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti Yang shyama sundaram achintya gunaswarupam Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. So Krishna can be seen with the senses. That is the object. Now, let's just proceed. Tika cha yasya tava srimata padabja darshanam manasapi grihitva prapya prakrita api ajadayo bhavanti sa bhavan me akshigocharo jato asti kim atah param varena iti arthaha iti esha. Now this is one of those cases where the translation of the verse had something in it that could only be filled really by the commentary. And so here that's been filled. So he says that this part, that prakrita api ajadayo bhavanti. So it's ajadayo. Now there's no verb for it here. So he says that prakrita api ajadayo bhavanti, that even conditioned beings can attain the post of Brahma. So really what it says that ajadayo, having attained the vision of Krishna through yoga, and then it doesn't say what happens to, so that had to be filled in by Sridhar. And so the purpose of the entire phrase there, Sridhar Swami also fills that out. So having attained this, what else can I ask for? So Markandeya was another case where he had the Lord before him, appeared to him. Sridhar Swami comments, after attaining the vision of your feet, even though the mind, even through the mind, the conditioned beings also become Brahma and so on. That same Bhagavan, you have become visible to my eyes. What further boon can I choose? There are many interesting questions that arise, because the point about seeing God is that there's no end to seeing God. It's a single continuum that just goes on and on. That you thought you saw, is Nava Nava Navayaman, that Krishna appears ever new. There's always something new, some new realization that's there. In a sense, that's happening to everybody, because Krishna is everything, of course. So the deeper one understands whatever particular corner of the universe God has given for understanding. So is it something that you can have once? I attained a vision of God. Then what? I saw God. All right, you saw God. Now what? Well, seeing God, it's supposedly that if you've seen God, then you have understanding of all things. You're granted a kind of special wisdom. But even there, wisdom is infinite, just like Krishna's darshan is infinite. I saw Krishna, I thought I saw Krishna today. I saw God. But if I saw him again tomorrow, then it would be as though I had never seen him before. Nava Nava Navayamana. Radharani laments. I saw him, but it was such she spent the night with him. But she says, I spent just a fleeting moment with him, and it was gone in a flash. And I'm trying to remember each detail from that. So seeing Krishna, it has eternal properties to it. At the same time, those eternal properties are not static, but they're ever increasing. If they were static, then that would not be Bhagavan realization. So we can talk about seeing God, seeing Krishna. There is something there, that the seeing of Krishna with the senses. And a lot of sadhakas do this. And there are people who are called siddha. I was just looking at some statements. Advaita Das, I don't know if Advaita Das is watching, but I really did want to say something that's, speaking to uh, Kalatita, and to Madan Mohan. I would like to thank you for both following, being so good. That's at least the two people I know who are actually listening. So that makes me feel as though I'm not all alone in the universe. Thank you very much. And I do enjoy, actually, I would like to say, Madan Mohan, your poetry really, I got to say, I'm getting a taste for it. We'll have to, someday we'll have to figure out how to collaborate. All right. So this idea of seeing God, this is the problem now. I mean, is it really that important? Okay. Well, obviously, if you dedicated your life to thinking about Krishna and you want to know that Krishna is real, is the doubt there, right? Is Krishna real? Especially for a person like me who has these Western academic tendencies, right? So I was just thinking about this today, that we can talk about, let's say, the demons in a very these are stories, right? So we're talking about this just in the seventh Anuched. That they're just stories and that they're being acted out, and so in order Krishna wants other devotees to be in his acting troupe, let's say, and so he gets other devotees, Jaya and Vijaya, to play the role of the villain. And then he tells the story, and so the Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, they get to play the bad guys and to show the world that being a bad guy, no matter how powerful and so on, is not good. That one should be on the side of righteousness, and that one should be on the side of dharma, and that God is there to protect the dharma. And so in some way or another, God will appear when there is an outbreak of unrighteousness. And when the righteous are being persecuted, all these things, in order to establish the principles of religion, he appears in every single age. So he comes visible to our eyes. So nowadays, of course, it's become very popular to see incarnations of God all over the place. And in a way, I find it an interesting sign of the times. It has always been the case, because fearful people have always felt that the end times were upon us. The Kali Yuga, time for Kalki Avatar, and so on. In the West, they have their apocalypse, and the rapture, and all these things that they're expecting to happen any day now. So what is this seeing God, right? This is a mystic path. This is something that only, if you see God, you will see him, but you will not be able, the other people will not be able to see him. At least, not immediately. Through your mercy, through the power of your speech and so on, perhaps they will be able to see God. It's the power of the word that makes it possible for people to see God. It's the power of a realized person, someone who has at least penetrated into infinity more than a few centimeters. So what other boon can I choose? Jiva Goswami, this is the Markandeya. This is the very end of the Bhagavatam. So this is one of the reasons why it took me several days to get to this point. I started out by saying, what is all this about Markandeya in the 12th canto? I don't remember all that. So of course when I go back to read it, I have to correct the Granthamandir version. So this is, I mean, I can't read any Bhagavatam text without revising and reading the commentaries. So that becomes quite time consuming, and this was where my journey began, right? To understand how the Bhagavatam ends with a pralaya. And not only does Maharaj Parikshit die, but the whole universe goes through an immersion, a submersion. And we start a new day of Brahma. Chapter 1 starts all over again. All right, so that's the in the 12th canto, the conclusion to the Bhagavatam. We just saw another verse from there also. At any rate, here's another verse he's saying. He's saying this verse should also be considered. So now this is the one I spent most of my time looking at. Because this verse, well, I'll talk about this verse in a minute. But let me just read it first, okay? Yat padapangshur bahujanma krishrato dritatma viryo gibhirapyalabhyaha sa eva yadadriga vishayak swayam stita kim varnyate tishtamaho vrajokasam. So this is another of those Kimuta verses. Yat padapangshur bahujanma krishrato dritatma viryo gibhira pyalabhya sa eva yadadriga vishaya swayam stita kim varnyate tishtamaho vrajokasam. So the padapangshu, the dust of the feet, bahujanma krishrato, many lives, many lifetimes of strict penances, sacrifice, hard work, many lifetimes of dritatma bhir, yogi bhir, apyalabhya, was not attained by yogis, even though they were fully self-controlled. Sa eva, that person, the dust of whose feet yogis could not attain, even after many, many lifetimes of self-control and difficult penances. He was standing here, he was situated himself in the most natural way as a young boy, always available to his parents and to his neighbors and to the other cowherd boys and to the cowherd girls. They could see him every single day. They had the bliss of being regularly within the sight of Krishna. So what can we say about their good fortune? The yogis, they do so much tapasya. And here the Vrajavasis, when did they do their tapasya? Well, it's an interesting, because in the previous verse to that is also a very famous verse. So the context of this is at the beginning of the 12th chapter. So this is one of the reasons why I got so caught up. Right? The 12th chapter, 13th chapter, 14th chapter, those are not accepted by certain people, including the Madhva Samprada, who don't like to hear Brahma be criticized. But at the same time, they don't want to have, they also don't like a few other verses about Putana. They don't like the fact that Putana could try to come and kill Krishna and then get liberated. That doesn't ring well to some people's ears. So, in a sense, to protect the Bhagavata vision of God's mercy, that mercy has to stretch even as far as Putana. So all these things were tied in together because this is all coming in at the beginning of the 12th chapter. So 12th, 13th, and 14th chapters. These three chapters are not accepted by Madhvacharya. So the 12th chapter is the killing of Aghasura. The 13th chapter is the stealing of the cowherds and cowherd boys. And then the 14th chapter is the prayers of Lord Brahma. So those three chapters are the ones that are not accepted to some other sampradayas. I think that the Ramanujites use that also doesn't include those three chapters. Whatever the case, so that being the case, some of these verses are not known to those sampradayas, including the one that we just recited, but the one that immediately precedes that. So what precedes that? The first 11 verses of the chapter, the first 10 verses of the chapter, describe very nicely how Krishna decides that day he wants to take a meal in the forest. So he blows he blows the buffalo horn and gets all the cowherd boys, all the boys together. Says, today, we're gonna have a feast out in the woods. So every day they go with the cows and with the calves. They're still with the calves. And so this is one of the beautiful descriptions of how the cowherd boys enjoy their time playing in the forest together while they're taking care of the calves. They're taking care of the calves, but at the same time they're playing in many different ways. And so all the different kinds of ways that they play. Even with the monkeys, I say that it's one of those things, don't do the way that it's described there in this early part of the 12th chapter of the 10th canto. Some of the commentators say that he took a hold of the tail of the monkey that was hanging down, sitting in a branch in a tree. The tail would be hanging down. The boys would grab a hold of the tail and then pull themselves up into the tree by the tail. Don't try this at home, folks. Let me guarantee you. This was another one that they said that, or it was another one was that the boys would take the baby monkey out of the mother's arms. I said, whoever wrote this, no kid, no child, I wouldn't recommend taking the baby monkey from the mother. You'd have the whole tribe of monkeys on you in 10 seconds. You wouldn't know where they came from. Anyway, it describes all the playful games, stealing, one boy steals another boy's lunch. They have little bags of food that they're carrying with them. Some carrying on the end of a stick. Or maybe in a little clay bowl that's carried on the end of the stick, something like that. Hanging. Shikya is the word. So, after describing all these cowherd boy pastimes, as we call them, the concluding verse there is the one just before the one that we read. Itam satam brahma sukhanubhutya dasyam gatanam paradaivatena maya sritana naradarakena sakam vijahru krita punya punja. So they were talking in the verse right after this, what we're just reading, the about the Yatpada Pangshu, about the dust of the feet that the yogis spend lifetimes, Bahujanma Krichrato, many lifetimes of difficult tapasya. So here, in the verse preceding, had Bahu Punya Punja. They must have so much punya, so much punya, because they have they are playing with you. Sakam Bijahru. Sakam with whom? Well, so it depends on how you're talking about it. But the last one is Mayasitanam Naradarakena. So by those who are in Maya, those who are in illusion, so whether they're in the external Maya or the internal Maya, they see Krishna as a Dharaka, Naradaraka, as a little boy, human boy. The other cowherds, they see Krishna as a human boy. And the people who don't believe in Krishna, don't believe in God, they also think that he's just an ordinary boy. So that's Maya Asritanam, those who have taken shelter of Maya. But those who have taken shelter of service to God, for him, this Krishna, this cowherd boy, this one who's playing there with the calves and cowherds, that this is the Paradevata. This is the Paradaivata. They see him as the supreme object of service and worship. And those who are Brahmavadis, those who are the Sats, those who are the Sadhus, they see him as Brahma Sukhanubhuti, as the experience of Brahma Sukha, of the happiness of Brahman. So just to contemplate him, and they experience that Sukha. So 3 levels of experiencing Krishna, or really 4 levels, because the Narad, the Naradarakena, that could be either a person who has no interest, who has no knowledge whatsoever, or it can be the one who is the Brajavasi, who's the most intimately connected. So that was the point. So it was the ones that the Brajavasis are the most intimately connected, and so therefore they must have Krita Punya Punjaha, they must have performed such austerities in previous lives, we can't even imagine. We can't even imagine. We see the yogis performing austerities. We can't imagine what austerities are needed to get such a pearl of great price, to get such a benediction as the capacity or the permission to stay within eyeshot of the Supreme Lord day in and day out. And especially if you're one of the cowherd boys who knew him in the intimacy of friendship and who could play with him and compete with him and joke with him. That friendship, what good fortune for them. So therefore, he concludes this particular Anuchhed with the example of Narada. So the point is to see Krishna. What good fortune is there to see Krishna? And to see him not simply internally, not simply to see him in the imagination, not simply to see him in the heart, but actually to see him physically present directly to your own spiritually imbued, spiritually empowered eyes. So here the point is that Narada, he had a particular, we saw already this one before, and this was given as an example of the Antak Sakshatkara. So now Jiva Goswami is bringing that verse back again in full. Pragayatak swaviryani tirthapada priyasravaha ahuta iva me shighram darshanam yati chetasi. So as I'm singing Krishna's heroic activities, uh, he who is the um, who is the whoops, the wrong translation. Here we go. When I sing of the heroic activities of the Lord, whose glory is delightful to the ears and whose feet are the source of all sacred waters, he quickly appears in my heart as if called there by me. But we saw that verse earlier. It was given as an example of antak sakshatkara. So the point here is that at any time he can access that, he can have that vision of Krishna just by playing his veena and singing the glories, singing the names of Krishna. So iti evam bhavavanapi, so even though that's his mood, Govinda bhujaguptayam dvaravatyam kurudvaha avasit narado bhikshnam krishnopasanalalasa. Govinda bhujaguptayam dvaravatyam kurudvaha avasit narado bhikshnam krishnopasanalalasa. So easy, so Dwarka was protected by Krishna's arms. And Narada went there over and over again in order to be able to worship Krishna directly. O best of the Kurus, eager to worship Sri Krishna, Narada regularly lived in Dwarka, which was protected by the arms of Govinda. So commentary, the realization of tattva is internal in the mind and external through the senses. Although external realization also happens in the mind, the distinction is made between the two because in the first, the external senses are not involved. The realization of tattva is further of two types, that of Brahman and Bhagavan. Brahman realization can only be internal because Brahman cannot be perceived by the external senses, being without form and attributes. In the previous Anucheda, it was said that Bhagavat Sakshatkara is superior to Brahma Sakshatkara. This implies that external Sakshatkara is superior to the internal. Sri Jiva Goswami makes that clear in this Anucheda. It is superior because it involves both the internal as well as the external senses. For this reason, though Narada could have the internal vision of Bhagavan at any time, he would go and spend months in Dwarka to witness firsthand the divine play of Krishna in family life. So I'm just going to leave it there today, folks, and we'll go on. We're going to go spending just keeping to the bare bones of the project. Jai Jai Sri Radhe Jai